Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Sky Gamblers Storm Raiders. It's one in a rather large series of flight games that are available on iOS primarily, and I know a lot of you just turned off. Well, as long as you watch the ad, I guess I don't mind. But they're fairly well regarded on iOS because they're quite graphically impressive and they control relatively well. They also have a nice multiplayer scene going for them. So along comes Sky Gamblers Storm Raiders on PC, a market which frankly has some very good flight games. And the question is it relevant? Does it play well? It's by a company called Atypical, and I think with this game, Atypical is not exactly how I would describe Sky Gamblers. In fact, I describe it as the polar opposite. It is a very typical arcade flight game. So you have a selection of a few planes here and there, as you can see. You can select them down the bottom there. There's a bunch that you can unlock as well throughout the game, as you've probably noticed. That's a pretty looker. Not really sure what that... An Aichi? Okay, I guess that's a Japanese bomber by the looks of it. But there are quite a few planes that you can fly around. We might mess around with the ME262. But let's have a look at the options menu first. It is not a big one. Not a lot to see here. This is the gameplay options. Wow. Okay. Yeah, really impressive there. Not a lot to see. I would like to see stuff like colorblind options. You were not going to get anything like that. If we look at graphics, again, not a lot to see. There's no AA in this game, and it's very noticeable. Even at very high, you'll notice the jaggies are there. And you also have to restart the game if you want to change the resolution, which is gnarly, to say the least. Sound options, very little to see here. And control settings, you can actually rebind this. This is where the stuff that actually matters is. Auto aim on or off. If you don't have auto aim on, your missions are going to take a lot longer. It's really that simple. Auto aim is, of course, kind of necessary on the iOS device for touchscreen controls. Not really necessary here, but if you want to accelerate yourself through the missions faster, turn the bloody thing on. And outside of that, you do have full rebinding, which actually does support the Cytec X52 flight stick and things like the Thrustmaster and a bunch of other stuff. So if you want to play this with a joystick, it surprisingly has that option, which you wouldn't necessarily expect from a mobile port, and I'm actually kind of impressed that they put it in there. So key rebinding is fully functional. You do have to mess around a little bit. I noticed that for some reason it was binding the score button to the fire button, which was weird because it wasn't showing up as that, but I unbound it and set it to numpad 7, so when I fire it doesn't show the score, which is nice. So a little bit of tweaking involved to get this working properly, but it does the job. Outside of that, keyboard and mouse, and there is 360 controller support as well, and you do have invert Y, which is super important. I'd turn that on immediately if you're like me. That's about it, though, in terms of the options, and you have a few language options here and there as well, which is always nice. Okay, so what have you got? You've got quick match, single player, multiplayer. The multiplayer is actually advertised as cross-platform. Now, if this is true in the matchmaking, I cannot imagine iOS players being able to handle a PC player with a flight stick. That seems like they'd never be able to respond that much, but maybe the auto-aim compensates. I guess we'll find out when we jump into that. Outside of that, if you go to quick match, it'll just put you right in a game really, really quickly. There is actually a multiplayer scene going. I'm in the jet, let's rock and roll. Okay, let's go and fly and blow some stuff up. Now, you might be asking, TotalBiscuit, what on earth are you doing? Why have you put this video on at 30 frames per second? Are you out of your mind? Well, for some reason, this game has some real problems maintaining 60 FPS capture, and I could not tell you why that is. I have absolutely no bloody idea. All right, one down, there we go. Not a clue, I'm afraid. Not a clue. I imagine there's some reason for it, but for some reason it was dropping frames completely, which is weird because the game runs at a constant 144 frames per second without any problems really whatsoever. I think I may be possibly overdoing the G's here just a little bit. Might want to not do that. At least I assume that's what it is. It doesn't actually give you a UI warning for that, but I suppose that's how they balance the jet, because the jet is pretty damn fast compared to pretty much everything else in the game, and it's surprisingly maneuverable, more so than I think it should be. But that is a very, very annoying feature. I have to say, that is extremely irritating. Alright, see what we can do here. There we go. You notice there's a little bit of lag with the planes. I've not seen anything that's so egregious that I absolutely hate it, but the planes do lag just a little bit. Alright, that should get him, right? Yeah, there you go. He's in the ocean. Who cares? Cool. We can boost out of that. We'll go after this one, try and save our friend over here. Most of the multiplayer modes are fairly basic. They've got like a capture the flag, last man standing, and team deathmatch, so nothing particularly special there. If you're looking for some really focused objective-based gameplay, you're probably not going to find it in this particular type. Oh, come on! Get over here, you bastard. I will eventually kill him, but the jet doesn't actually have great weapons, so I guess that balances the fact that it's ridiculously fast. There we go. No music in the multiplayer, as you might notice, which does make the whole experience just a little bit odd. Well, there we go. We apparently lost the game. People jumped out of it. You can jump in and out here and there, and you also gain experience, which will allow you to unlock a bunch of stuff. But as you can see, the multiplayer scene is actually reasonable. There's a reasonable amount of games to be found in different modes to play in, so it's not the worst thing ever. You could also, of course, just join private games as well. It's even got local Wi-Fi option, which is quite neat. I imagine that's probably for use with those who are playing on tablets, so you can have yourself a little LAN party. So, I gotta admit, that's actually a pretty nice feature. Admittedly, I just don't believe that an iOS player could possibly compete with a PC player that happens to be running something like a flight stick. That seems a little ridiculous, and I'm a bit surprised that they even allow that in the first place, but hey, it's in the game, so there you go. Okay, we'll jump into a little bit of the single player and have a look at that. Can fly that around, I suppose. Let's have a look at what else there is available. There are quite a few planes. They're in under different categories. I quite like the Zero. It's very maneuverable, so we could go with that. Most of the planes, though, seem to be armed with very, very similar weapons. There's just, like, light cannon and heavy cannon. For some missions in the campaign, you're equipped with torpedoes and bombs, but outside of that, you're really just going to be shooting stuff. There we go. We can take the Spit out for a little bit of a spin. So in single player, you have a campaign which is fairly lengthy. There's actually 3 campaigns, so there's a lot to do there. Admittedly, most of the missions are pretty similar. You're either dogfighting or bombing stuff or doing a combination of the two. So they actually drag on for quite some time versus the dogfight missions, which are really short. So if I jump into the dogfight mission, it's usually kill 4 planes and then you get a bunch of experience. This is the sort of thing that I would expect from a mobile game, because a lot of mobile games obviously do go for the shorter match approach, because they're dealing with people that are just looking for a little bit of fun, whether they be on the toilet or waiting for the bus or whatever, which, you know, makes a perfect amount of sense. But the campaign missions are actually surprisingly lengthy with multiple stages and generous checkpoints, so I can't really complain about that. If I'm going to complain about anything, it's about the fact that if I were asked to tell you what's unique about Sky Gamblers, I couldn't. Because really, there isn't anything. It is a very, very run-of-the-mill arcade flight game. The flight physics are not particularly advanced in any particular way, and while the planes do control well with the joystick and also pretty well with the keyboard and mouse as well on the pad, so I don't really have any complaints about the controls. I'm just trying to kind of think to myself, look, like, what is exceptional about it? What makes it stand out from the pack? Because we're on iOS, there aren't that many great flight games, and Sky Gamblers is kind of towards the top in terms of production value, in terms of the amount of content it's got, and multiplayer support. So you could argue, yeah, absolutely, I can absolutely see why people would play Sky Gamblers on a mobile device if they were desiring a flight game on an iPad, for whatever reason. But on PC, you're up against War Thunder, and to a lesser extent, World of Warplanes, and also sims like IL-2, and all sorts of really, really good games. So, at that point, I have to ask you, well, what exactly is your game doing to stand out from the pack? And the answer is nothing. It's not doing anything. Outside of the cross-platform multiplayer, this game is unexceptional in every way. It's not that it's bad. It doesn't do anything particularly bad. It just doesn't do anything particularly well either. It's just so simple. I wish it wouldn't put the mouse cursor in the middle every bloody time I spawn. That's really annoying. It's just so very, very simple. It's a reasonable PC port, and I give them credit for that because they could have botched it completely. I do very much like the fact that the game actually supports the flight stick. That's great. But what am I doing? Well, I've got very basic flight controls. Pitch and yaw. Move up and down. I've got a boost mode, which will burn my engine out after a time. So there's that. And you can also take subsystem damage, so your stuff can go offline and jam for a little while. But outside of that, what else does it really have going for it? I think if I was going to play an arcade flight sim, I'd rather play something like Dogfighter, which actually has power-ups and interesting weapons. Or even go futuristic and play... I can't remember the bloody name of the damn thing now. That's quite embarrassing. The hell is the name of that game? That futuristic dogfighting game with the ships where you can change between hover mode and regular mode? Oh, I've completely forgotten. That's embarrassing. I have completely forgotten the name of that game. Oh well. Ha. That's a bit sad. Never mind. It also has a skirmish mode, so it's not like it's lacking content. Like, it is a feature-rich game, but the core gameplay is just so vanilla. I wouldn't call it lackluster, I'd just say that it doesn't do anything. You fly and you shoot things with cannons, and that's really about it. And that's not enough to keep me engaged in a game like this for any real length of time. Which is why, again, it's probably a good bet on mobile, because you're not really looking necessarily to be engaged for a great degree of time. But on a PC, you're looking for something that's a little bit more in-depth. And War Thunder takes this game and just takes a gigantic dump on it in terms of that. I mean, not only could you start playing for free, but everything about that game is just much, much better. It's got a far larger roster of planes, much greater customization. This game's customization is minimal. It's really just cosmetic. Apparently, you can change some limited loadouts in some situations, but most of the time, it's just a case of you fly this plane, it's got default cannons, deal with it. And there's so much more going on with War Thunder, like, it's flight mechanics, it's game mode, so much more interesting, and of course you have, like, the tanks in there now. Or you can even play World of Warplanes, which is not considered as good as War Thunder by most people. Or you can play something like Star Conflict, which is a kind of futuristic flight game. I'm not really that impressed. Like, on PC, I don't see Sky Gambler's relevance, honestly. If you are looking for a little arcadey World War II flight game, then fine. There are quite a few of those on PC. Some of them are probably better than this. There's not really, I think, a great deal of challenge to that. I think I'm fighting iPad users here because this is going pretty well. My plane is on fire, but I am getting triple kills, so hey. Oh, that G-force thing is actually really damn annoying. Probably better to be shot down and respawn at this point, but hey, there we go. The wing comes off. I'm still in the air. I do like the fact that they let you do that, maybe go down fighting a little bit. But as I said, like, what is there to really celebrate about Sky Gamblers on PC, other than it being a decent enough port from mobile? The answer is not really a lot. Maybe if it comes down in price, you might want to give it a bash, but personally, I think that you should be playing War Thunder, frankly, instead of this. It's just, it is so damn generic. You know, it has no feature that stands out as being different from anything else, which on iPad is enough for games like this. It really is. Like, competence is enough on iPad when you have so many bad games, but on PC, you need to do more than just that, I'm afraid. So, I praise them for a reasonable PC port. Admittedly, things like AA and color deficient options are missing, which I'm not particularly happy about. And of course, the cross-platform multiplayer is a neat little feature, but it's not enough to keep my interest. Like, there's not really a lot going on here, I'm afraid. Sky Gamblers, ladies and gentlemen, currently available on PC for $10, on iOS for 99 cents. I think one is certainly a better deal than the other. My name has been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.